Dear Lord, try to answer the first two questions. Where are we? How did we get here? And it's our operating system that got us here. And what the IPCC and all that are trying to deal with the systems of how we operated. Greenhouse gas emissions, the rise in temperature. It's like you have cancer, but what is actually causing the cancer in your body that you've got to look at? We treat the symptoms so often of our sickness rather than the deep down causes of things. So I don't know if that summarizes it a little bit for you. I don't know how you feel about that. Okay, I mean, you don't have to accept everything I'm saying, eh? All right. But you can see, to a large extent, our institutions, our laws, etc., are operating from the left-hand side, even though lots of people are trying to work towards the right-hand side. And very often we love to aspire to this, but the choices we make in our everyday lives reflect that we're operating there. Okay. And we'll see how that goes along. Is that okay so far?
Yes.
Okay. So now, how are we to respond to what we've seen so far? So some people have this attitude, so what, that's it, hang with that, I'll go with what I'm doing. Donald Duck. Okay. They pick and choose what is suitable for them and easier for them. Or we embrace the advance in our understanding that science presents us with in order to deepen our response to what lies at the heart of it. And I think we're all, in one way or another, in education. And I think that's the process of education, eh? All right. Remember, difference, subjectivity, and connection, communion. How in our systems do we try and uphold those? Because our universe operates on those. That's how God reveals God's self. So, we've done the first two now. Is that okay? We're going on to what's possible for the future and where do you go from here? So now you're going to get more of this also with Brother Kevin this afternoon, okay? There was a time for global action. We had the SDGs, as you saw. And there's if you dig down deeper in that, there's an incredible spirituality behind that, if you want to believe that. Correct? Upholding earth, upholding everything. Beautiful. Although in United Nations language, you're supposed to use religion or spirituality or anything like that. The closest I've heard was the High Commissioner for Human Rights speaking about the common good. Okay.
Yes. Not leaving anyone behind.
Yes. Yeah, true, eh? And then in 2015, we had Laudato Si, Pope Francis's, okay, and he had 6 chapters. Brother Kevin is very up on all this. What is happening to our common home, the gospel of creation, the human roots of the ecological crisis, integral ecology, lines of approach and action. And then he speaks about ecological education and spirituality. Okay. A few quotations from Laudato Si. We've had enough of the immorality, of the mockery of ethics, goodness, faith, and honesty. It's time to acknowledge that our light-hearted superficiality has done us no good. When the foundations of social life are corroded, what ensures are battles over conflicting interests, new forms of violence and brutality, and obstacles to the growth of a genuine culture of care for the environment. Very strong language, eh? When we see God reflected in all that exists, our hearts are moved to praise the Lord for all his creatures and to worship in union with them. That's Pope Francis's words. God is in everything and everything is in God. The universe unfolds in God who completely fills it. Hence, there is a mystical meaning to be found in a leaf, in a mountain trail, in a dewdrop, in a poor person's face. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. Another one, although we are often not aware of it, we depend on these larger systems for our own existence. We need only to recall our ecosystems interact in dispersing carbon dioxide, purifying water, controlling illnesses and epidemics, forming soil, breaking down waste, and in many other ways which we overlook or simply do not know about. These are the hidden costs that are not part of our economic systems. If you had to cost all these things, businesses would really change very quickly, these hidden costs. Once they become conscious of this, many people realize that we live and act on the basis of a reality which has previously been given to us, which precedes our existence and our abilities. Now, he spoke about the last chapter, integral ecology, takes us to the heart of what it is to be human. Science, ethics, spirituality, action. And the way he looks at it is this. Okay. See scientifically, evaluate ethically, reflect spiritually, and then act effectively. Very often, sometimes we see scientifically and we just act. And what we're acting is not ethically good. I mean, and spirituality just doesn't come into it. So all the actions that some of the scientists are saying are they ethically correct, etc., etc. But Pope Francis is bringing this whole one of reflecting spiritually. Do we take time to do that? Okay? And the mystics in our past ages, etc., were so good at this. Thomas Merton, for example, okay, the Trappist monk. Jesus of Nazareth. What was his whole spirituality? Now notice I say Jesus of Nazareth, not Jesus Christ. Christ is a much bigger, broader concept. Jesus the Christ would have meaning. So Jesus of Nazareth, his whole spirituality was the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, etc., etc. He was a Jew. He wasn't a Christian. He was a Jew. And his whole spirituality was that. And he went away to the mountainside to commune with his God. And he tried to act out his spirituality with the poor people who were abused by the religious and governing systems of the time. Okay, so see where his spirituality was. His operating system was that Sermon on the Mount. Beautiful. Now, the Laudato Si has got 7 action goals. Response to the cry of the earth, response to the cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoption of simple lifestyles. I can't see yellow so well. Ecological education, ecological spirituality, and then community engagement and participatory action. Laudato Si action goals. Something like the SDGs, eh? If you put those two together, they would merge. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly, okay? Because it'll be on your slides you get, because you can take a day to do all this. The cry of the earth, some actions listed there. Climate action, biodiversity loss, water conservation, land protection in your own areas, okay? This is done by Sunil Brito, Brother Sunil, okay? The cry of the poor, promoting indigenous leadership and land rights, solidarity with vulnerable people, promoting indigenous culture and leadership, share human and financial resources, hold social or ecological action days with the poor. Ecological economics, support a local circular economy. I'll come to that a bit later. Where do you get all your stuff that you buy for your school? Have you ever had an audit of your purchases? Okay. Divest from fossil fuels and activity harmful to people and the planet, or sign the pledge for no future investment. Where do we invest our money? Is it invested in fossil fuel companies that we don't even know about? Ensure dignity of workers. Teach and practice gift economy value. That's an important one there. The free giving of goods and services without the expectation of financial compensation. Volunteer days. We can do that with our kids. They love doing that. Okay? A gift economy. Sustainable lifestyles. How do our, buildings, how are we efficient in lighting and heating and saving water, transportation, food and diet, consumer practices? Okay? The whole economic system in a consumer society is buy more, buy more, buy more, buy more. Okay. And there are jobs attached to that. So if you go out of that, what happens to the jobs? There's also that consideration, So it's a difficult thing. Okay.
Vicious circle.
Sorry?
It's a vicious circle.
It's a vicious circle, you're right. Ecological education. This is what we could do quite a lot. I have never heard this from a pulpit yet. Okay? Laudato Si action plan. Communications, educations must be community-led, equal access to education. We've got our faith-based organizations have got such a powerful role to play in all of this. Okay. Ecological spirituality. How do we celebrate seasons of creation? Those type of things. The Laudato Si's, praying in nature. So often we have just devotions. Can we think of it a little more creative? Take the kids out into the playground or something, flowers, let them pray with that, etc. Co-host a season of creation events with another community. And you've got Laudato Si action platforms all over the world, groups, and they are doing these things if you try and get in contact with them. Beautiful. Engagement and participation. This is very important. Advocating for social ecological change causes, engaging with the wider public, developing collective responses with the local church leaders and local officials. And we're going to have to develop resilience because we're going to have floods and droughts, etc. Okay. What happened in Spain when they had the rain? The narrow streets became rivers and they just washed cars away. Just amazing. Okay. I love this, the season of creation of 2023. Every year there's a season of creation, a month, eh? And the swimming was a mighty river. Transform your hearts, transform your lifestyles, and transform your public policies. Is that Brendan?
Hello.
Oh dear. How's Brendan?
You can sit here on a comfy chair.
Thank you.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I get migraines probably about 4 times a year. But I think Doc gave me a herbal remedy. I think I sailed along without biting.
I think it was the mountain air.
Could be the mountain, yeah. Maybe it was in the mountain water.
Okay. Just to recap in the first session, we did where we are in terms of all the environmental and social crises. Then we went into what is the underlying way of life that has caused this, and that's our understanding of creation and God, etc. Now we're dealing with what can we do and where do we go from here? There's 4 questions. So that was beautiful. The season of creation, transform our hearts. So often it's easy enough to do in our heads, but does it transform how we really feel about and act out? That's our heart spirituality. And that'll lead to our lifestyles and our public relations and policies. There's a thing about the letter. I'm not going to go through. And last year, 8 years later, Pope Francis wrote a letter, Laudato Deum. Okay? And there's a video on it, and there's a kind of summary again, because there was the COP28 in Dubai and all that. We just haven't done enough. And he was trying to stress that. And now we got COP29 happening this week. Okay? So I won't go into that. I just want you to think of this Now, this is a little bit technical and scientific. Linear thinking. And our whole industrial process is based on linear thinking. We mine the earth, A. We manufacture, B. We buy and sell, C. And D, we chuck the rubbish out and the leftovers. And we think we can keep on doing that linear process on a finite planet forever and have continuous growth. Linear thinking. And that's impossible. What is left out of that linear thinking?
Rubbish.
People, planet, biological life. There's no consideration of what's happening along the way. All the social, environmental issues that are happening to people, planet, etc. It's just a continuous thing. We can keep on doing it. Drill, baby, drill. Donald Duck. Okay, just keep going. And we can do it forever. And as I said, if we all had to aspire to live like America, we'd need 2.5 planets. And we haven't got 2.5, we've got 1.
Just one.
And it's battling. But then there's systems thinking, and our indigenous cultures thought this way, our indigenous people. I want you to look at this now. In these type of feedback loops, the emphasis is not on the nodes, but the relationship between the nodes. So if you look on the left-hand one, A and B, if A increases, B will decrease. Or if A decreases, B will increase. There's called what we call self-regulation, that loop. Who can put something on A and B? Think now. If you do one thing, the other is going to decrease.
Solar energy.
Sorry?
She said solar energy, use of solar energy.
Okay, put what are you going to put in A?
Yeah.
Solar energy.
Yeah.
And B? Increase solar energy, decrease what?
We are making use of
Greenhouse gases.
Yes.
Greenhouse gases will reduce. And there is self-regulation. More gender-based rights, less gender-based violence. Now you can look at your classroom teachers. What self-regulated loop is there in your classroom? Naughty boys, etc. There is no situation where there is no where there aren't feedback loops. So that's self-regulation. This one, if A increases, B increases, and out of that comes an emerging property. Who can put an A and a B for that? Take the planet. More fossil fuels, more greenhouse gases, increase in temperature. Okay, there's one. Now, every situation is made up of hundreds, thousands of feedback loops. You can have a loop and a loop and a loop and a loop and a loop. Try and think about all the loops in your classroom, just in your classroom or your project. And that's how we got to think. Our economy has got to be circular. It cannot be linear in our world of today. Okay. So that's just a little bit of what we call, and I just spoke about the Khoisan people, how systems thinking did them. They never used up anything so that nothing died out. If they took a plant, they made sure there was enough left over for the plant to regrow. Okay, the species or the herd of animals, you never shot the whole lot out. So there's nothing left. Then what? We have been extinction of species all over our world. Okay. So again, how does our world operate those two things? Mostly on linear thinking. We've got to get towards that. Okay. All right with that? You sure? But this is very important. There's an emerging property, and that's happening in our planet also. Emerging things are happening. Okay. It's not static. So the challenge, I like to put it this way, is to go from kingship, and often we speak about, oh, we must become better stewards. It means we're still in charge, rather than becoming kinship. Now, on the left, we've got ego. Who's the top of the ego pile?
Human.
The what?
Human.
Human. But what type of human? The male species. Where's the female species? Yeah. Patriarchy, etc. And the challenge is to go to eco. We're all in the circle, the same, etc. We're all linked, etc. And you look in your own country, patriarchal systems. Wow. Okay. America wasn't ready for a female president and a lady of color.
Anytime soon.
Yeah. So, a big challenge, eh? Okay.
Obama was there, but this was more on gender. Obama was there.
No, Obama is somewhere, so they
Yeah.
have no problem as long as for them.
Well, for a woman, there's
Woman was,
for the woman, the glass ceiling is made out of concrete.
It was by the white men overwhelmingly did not vote.
Hillary was white.
that's what it's more on women.
Okay, so there is, you've got the SDG goals, you've got Laudato Si, Laudato Deum, and the Laudato Si action platform. Okay, beautiful stuff. And in your own areas, you can always find a Laudato Si group operating. Okay. I won't go through all these quotes. There's Dennis Edwards, there's Thomas Aquinas, and another very good theologian, Elizabeth Johnson. Every created good is good by participation in the one who is good by nature. It follows that in the whole sphere of creation, there is no good that is not good participatively. That's kind of difficult to understand. It's good by participation. Okay. For God brought things into being in order that his goodness might be communicated to creatures. Dennis Edwards, the Australian, I think, no one creature, not even the human, can image God by itself. Only the diversity of life, huge soaring trees, the community of ants, the flashing colors of the parrot, the beauty of the wildflower, along with the human, can give expression to the radical diversity and otherness of the Trinitarian God. There are beautiful books on all of this. Okay. So this kind of sums up what I'm been trying to talk about. No spirituality is valid if it's simply a personal piosity or devotion. Every genuine spirituality must result in action. And God calls us to mystical activism. I'd love you to just remember those words, to bring beauty and healing to our world. Jesus of Nazareth was a mystical activist. And his whole operating, as said, was the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are, etc., etc., etc. And he went and spent time alone communicating with his God. Mysticism, experiencing God, not thinking ideas about God, but experiencing awe and mystery. To sit with that, and we haven't got all the answers. So mystical activism. I said I'd come back to this one. All earth is governed by laws we did not devise. Laws we cannot revise, laws to which we are too subject. God works through these laws, gravity, etc., and processes of nature. Earth does not belong to us, we belong to Earth. We come from it, we are sustained by it, and in the end, we return to it. How does the evolving understanding of the emerging universe story impact on how we live? How do we make the principles of differentiation, interiority, and communion a reality in our lives? And I love saying, when I die, I'm just going to morph into the energy field of the universe. That's going to heaven. Okay. Don't know if that's shocking, but still. Take action. Who's that young lady? Greta. And she was amazing for a young lady. You know? Schoolstrek vir die klimaat. And she spoke at various, okay. I just want you to, after the Second World War, 1955, an economist in America, Victor Lebow, remember we come out of a war economy, huge manufacturing, people, women had jobs in the factories because the men were fighting, etc., etc. And the guy at the ILO, the labor union tomorrow, will speak about these things and how various laws came in, etc. Our enormously productive economy demands that we make consumption our way of life, that we convert the buying and use of goods into rituals, that we seek our spiritual satisfaction, our ego satisfaction in consumption. We need things to consume, burnt up, replaced, and discarded at an ever accelerating rate. That was in 1955. And hasn't our consumer society done that? Our rituals, where do people gather? The shopping malls. Okay. All right. I'm going to play you a few little video clips now. This is by a lady called Julia Butterfly Hill. She spent 2 years up a Californian redwood tree, activating against the logging of all those. She's a much older lady now. This is in her younger days. Okay, but what she has to say is still so important. Disposability consciousness.
I believe that one of the biggest examples of separation syndrome in our lives is how we have such a profound disposability consciousness in this culture. And I use the example of when you say you're going to throw something away, where's away? There's no such thing. And where away actually is social justice issues and environmental justice issues. Every plastic bag, plastic cup, plastic to-go container, that is the petroleum complex in Africa, Ecuador, Colombia, Alaska, you name it. Every paper bag, paper plate, paper napkin, that is a forest. Every thing that is called waste or disposable is the ways in which we are saying that it is acceptable to throw our planet and its people away. When I started thinking about disposability consciousness, I went and asked a lot of Native people that I know if in their original language, if they had any words for waste, disposable, or trash. And I have yet to find in any traditional language words for waste, disposable, or trash. Because all traditional knowledge knows that there's no such thing. I saw a great sign once that said it's only called waste if you're not using it properly. And we have a wasteful consciousness, we have a disposability consciousness. We've lost our connection to the sacred. And for me, disposables are one of the huge magnifiers of how we've lost our connection to the sacred. Because you don't walk up to a tree and go, wow, I wonder how many paper plates I could get out of that puppy. You know, we don't think that way, but our actions are doing that. I invite people to look at everything in our lives and look at where does waste mentality and disposability consciousness, how has it infiltrated my life? And I see it as one of the ways in which we all have internalized oppression. Because those forms of oppression are disconnect. Those forms of disconnect, they work best when they just subtly weave themselves into the fabric of our lives, where we just take it for granted that we're going to go to the coffee shop and get coffee that came from an exploited community somewhere where a forest was destroyed for a monoculture, put it in a paper cup that used to be a forest, put a plastic lid on top of it that used to be an indigenous community somewhere in a beautiful area, drink it, and then throw it away where it goes back and pollutes a nature community or a human community at the end. I am so fiercely passionate about it because I know in my heart that as long as we are trashing the planet and trashing each other, a healthy and holistic and healed world is not possible. We cannot have peace on the earth unless we also have peace with the earth. Our disposability consciousness is a weapon of mass destruction. I have walked in the clear cuts. I have been in the oil pits. I have seen the weapons of mass destruction called disposability consciousness. And if we want a healed world, we have to begin to choose tools of mass compassion, where we are reusing everything, where we are reconnecting to riding our bike, getting out and walking, using less energy, not leaving lights on here and there and not thinking about it. When I first came to the city after coming down from the tree, I was walking around in the neighborhood one day, and I noticed all these lights on in homes that weren't people, in homes where people weren't even there. And I know that it's because of that mentality that we were taught that, you know, the big scary criminals will think somebody's home if there's a light on. I'm like, if I lived in a tree for 2 years and I know nobody's home, I bet those big scary criminals know nobody's home. And I say that and I laugh because it's that fear mentality that makes us to be these wasteful consumers. And I saw that that is this disposability consciousness, that we are just throwing everything away, and that we are afraid of everything, and that's manifest everywhere in our lives. I invite people to recognize the joy in simplicity, the power in simplicity. Because when people hear that I'm a joyous vegan, car-free, ride bike as often as I can, touring in a bus powered by vegetable oil, a lot of times people think, well, that must be boring. But, you know, the food must be bland. You must be really sad and upset. I'm like, do I look it? Like, it is the most joyful, life-affirming choice to let go of disposability consciousness and to reclaim every moment, every day, every choice as a step towards healing.
What do you think? Not everybody can do that.
Dominic is going vegan, so it's taking a challenge. No meat tonight.
So I love this saying from Julia. There'll be no peace on earth until there is peace with the earth.
Very true.
And that's what I said in the earlier one there. We've come to terms with genocide, but we haven't got in our law systems ecocide and geocide. We're still fighting our planet. We're still blowing up our planet and biological life. If we don't have peace with the earth, there won't be peace on the earth. Okay. Yeah, we can't all be live simply as Julia does, but we can try and do our best in our own circumstances, and especially in how we run our institutions. Okay? Remember we spoke about the circular economy. Okay, not a linear economy. Now, this is one of her sayings. It is when we look at all of life and we feel that sacred connection that we begin to change how we live in the world. And as a result, it will begin to change how others live in the world. This is not another, he's a minister in the US. What's the Anglican Church? Episcopal minister, that's right. He's married, he's a farmer also. And to me, this summarizes everything. We cannot live harmlessly. To live, we must daily break the body and shed the blood of creation. Just to live, we got to dig the soil and plant the crops. We might have to kill an animal to live. When we do this knowingly, skillfully, reverently, it is a sacrament. When we do it ignorantly, greedily, clumsily, destructively, it is desecration. And in such desecration, we condemn ourselves to spiritual and moral loneliness and others to want. Now, to me, that expands our understanding of sacramental living. If we do everything in terms of sacred skill reverently, as our indigenous cultures did, it's sacramental. It's bringing about the kingdom of God, God's reign, God's life on earth. So, my challenge to serve and preserve the earth. And I say this, how do we live Eucharistically? I think we've got a very, very narrow understanding of Eucharist. We say we're going to Mass. And I'm glad, Father Matthew, you used, we're going to celebrate the Eucharist rather than going to Mass as if it's a devotion. And I'm sure if Jesus of Nazareth was there, he wouldn't recognize what's happening in our churches in terms of celebrating Eucharist. I'm sure that Last Supper painting, there were women all over the place enjoying it with him. It was rowdy, it was argumentative, okay? It was life. He loved, Jesus of Nazareth loved sharing a meal with all sorts of people. He shared life. So, to me, that is Eucharist because it's bringing out a better world. Quality of life is not necessarily quantity of stuff. Some of the R's, rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle, refuse. Sustainability, preservation of biodiversity, soil, water, gardening, planting trees. All these bring about a better world. Social and environmental justice, advocacy, leadership. What's happening here? It's trying to bring about a better world. Awareness raising, education, environmental rights, law, green chemistry, zero waste, closed loop production, renewable energy, disinvestment in fossil fuels and extractive industries, local living economies, and how to engage with our world, join a group, involve women groups and children. You've got little booklets on 170 actions, etc., etc. Okay. I would love you to think that this is Eucharistic living. Okay? Instead of a narrow little vision of going to church on a Sunday or something. Okay? It's what Jesus would have been involved in if he wanted to. Okay. Thomas Berry, again. The human has become the desolation of the earth. All human institutions, political, commercial, governmental, social, legal, education, university, religious, and their professions and programs must be judged primarily by the extent to which they ignore or inhibit or foster a mutually enhancing human-earth relationship. Okay, and we've got a lot of transformation to do in all those areas. So I ask you to think of this. What do you, what do I, what do we bring to the table of life each day? Each day, break open and share. Does it ignore or inhibit or foster a mutually enhancing human-earth relationship? Foster the reign of God in, with, and through the body of Christ. Using Eucharistic language there, okay? What do you bring to the table of life each day? Break it open and share. Does it bring about a better world? So why don't we do it? I want you to listen to Julia again.
When I think about how we've gotten to this place of being so separated from the earth and from each other and from our choices, it seems like there's many prongs that have gotten us to this point. I think one of the core elements, though, is actually quite simple, which is fear. And fear is simple and profound, just like love is simple and profound. And fear will drive us to make choices that our hearts don't long to make, that our spirits don't long to make. Fear will shut down the voice of the heart and spirit and collapse us into beings without meaning and without value. I see in this culture in particular, how that manifests is our addiction to comfortability. We are birthing an addict society. I went through a time in my life where I was a major drug and alcohol addict. And so I know on a very real level what addiction is. And as a society, we are being birthed into an addiction culture where you need consumerism, you need comfortability, and you go through the same withdrawals and all these same things that you go through as a drug addict or an alcoholic. And I see even the most conscious among us making the most unconscious choices out of our addiction to comfortability. I love using the example of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly, because the caterpillar's got a pretty cool life, you know? It's chill, it lives on its food source, it doesn't have too many threats, it's usually camouflaged so that whatever birds or things might come after it, it's slightly safe. And then it has this weird calling that defies description that says there's something more for you. And there's no rationale or reasoning. And if we are, in many ways, we are that caterpillar going, man, I don't want to leave this leaf. This is cool. I got it made here, you know? And yet there's this deeper calling that tells the caterpillar, there's something more for you. And then the caterpillar has to trust this great unknown, this great mystery. And fear keeps us from trusting the great mystery within ourselves. For me, the divine is the great mystery, that we are all manifestations of this great mystery. I take a breath and I am amazed at the great mystery that just allowed me to breathe and everything that happens for that magic to happen. But this caterpillar follows the great mystery, and then it pulls the cocoon from within itself. It goes into its deepest depths and pulls this cocoon out and then wraps itself in it. And we are afraid of what's inside of ourselves. When something comes up that we don't like, click on the television, go out to eat, go party with friends, go shopping. Whatever it is that we don't have to take a good hard look at what's inside of ourselves. But the caterpillar knows that there's something more, even though there's no reason for it, and goes, okay, I'm going to do this work. It's uncomfortable, but I'm going to do this work. And then it wraps itself in there, and it's tight and it's dark, and there's nowhere to run, and there's no way to sidetrack itself. It's just dealing with its innermost depths. And that process liquefies it. That's not a comfortable, touchy-feely kind of thing, right? That's not like, oh, and it's all going to be better. Like, that's some hardcore work. And then there's the point, though, where that cocoon gets comfortable, too. It might be a little cramped and dark in there, and I think I see that happening in our evolution as people. It gets a little cramped and dark in there, but it's also comfortable and safe now. We've created this little world around us that we can just call ourselves enlightened and stay there, versus taking that enlightenment and having the courage to take it out into a world that's not like anything we can imagine. And the last thing that happens after the caterpillar begins to liquefy is its head pops off. And then its head absorbs into this liquid being that it's becoming. And if you take a cell from that liquid before its head pops off, it only reproduces part of a butterfly. And after its head incorporates into its entire soupy being, you can take a cell, any cell, and it recreates an entire new butterfly. And then the caterpillar has to push through the barriers of comfortability again and trust that whatever is outside that space is going to be a magical world. And then it takes a moment of grace to fan its wings, and then it takes a leap. And I think that our fear consistently keeps us from that process, whether it's at the leaf stage or in the cocoon stage, or where we get out and we flap our wings and say, that edge looks a little scary, I'm just gonna chill here. You know?
So, any feedback on that? It's a very challenging thing. We can be very comfortable in our church setup, but the challenge is to do more and more and more, to take that enlightenment that we know out into a world that doesn't know. And we as religious, I think, have got a very onerous responsibility, because we, in our training, let's face it, have had many opportunities that other people sometimes out in the world in married life haven't got or haven't had. How are we using that enlightenment to help make a better world? It's a very, very big challenge. And often it's out of fear that we don't do it. We're too afraid of something or other. And it's not easy. You remember she said, the most, out of fear, sometimes the most conscious people make the most unconscious choices. We go back to the left-hand side of that document. Even though we are conscious, just out of our fear, we don't do that. So it's got to take a lot of introspection and deep thing and working with people. Nobody's perfect. It's difficult. But that is what I think Jesus of Nazareth challenged us to do.
When I think about how we've got...
Okay, so we are all in this together. They're the gentle hands again, and I think they're holding the earth much gentler now. Okay? This one, those owls, the eyes of the future are looking back at us, and they are praying for us to see beyond our own time. Not just now. Okay. Very often some people would say we're living off the credit card of our grandchildren. We're living off the credit cards of our grandchildren. So, Albert Einstein, our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion. Remember, Julia said we must become weapons of mass compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Okay, a bit difficult. This is kind of a summary now of what I've done with you. The earth is primary, the human is secondary. It's not just about human rights, it's earth rights. If we don't have earth, we're not going to have any human rights. Human rights flow out of earth rights. We need to move from anthropocentrism to cosmocentrism. I am the universe in the form of a human being. I am the universe reflecting on itself. I'm not just a democratic man or the democratic woman or belong to this party or I'm a US citizen. I'm far more than that. We are a community of subjects, not a collection of objects. And our laws haven't come to terms with that. Objectivity, property. We are the universe in the form of a human being. We are the universe reflecting on itself. Everything is in some way sacramental. Everything is sacred. Earth is a sacrament of divine glory. Only a sense of the sacred within us will save us. Where do we touch the sacred, and where does the sacred touch us? Pope Francis in Laudato Si, the challenge is a spiritual challenge, not just an ecological challenge. It's far more than, it's much deeper than that. And then what I did with you, God calls us to mystical activism, to bring beauty and healing to our world. So that's a kind of summary of everything. You'll get all this, okay? Any feedback now so far? Excuse me. So here's the last thing. I want you to listen to this very carefully.
It's 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, "What did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals, reptiles, birds were all dying. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew?"
What have you done? Jose, what are you going to do?
It's 3:23 in the morning.
I love this picture. A satisfied life is better than a successful life, because our success is measured by others, but our satisfaction is measured by our own soul, mind, and heart.
Completely what the world is telling us.
Brother, I would like to give you a clap.
Thank you very much. So far, anything you want to raise so far? How was that? The two sessions are quite heavy, but I think it's not just about action, it's about a deeper understanding, okay? And everybody is at a different level, and you've got to appreciate that. Okay, any questions? Thank you for listening so much. You were very good. I'm going to end off with an indigenous culture prayer.
Yes.
That one, the very one to be the
Sorry?
Oh, the power of invocation. You want to give him a good one, yeah, different.
After the prayer.
The part, that's like a prayer.
After this, guys.
The act prayer.
It's not giving
It's going to share it. You're the one to share it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let's try and share this sentence by sentence. Okay. I'm going to read the first sentence, and then Jose, you read the next one to the next full stop. Do you follow? And then we go on. Not everybody will do, but you'll see how it goes. Okay. So Thomas Berry says, we are a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. Mitakui or Asen, all my relations, I honor you in the circle of life with me today.
I am grateful for this opportunity to acknowledge you in this prayer to the Creator for the ultimate gift of life. I thank you.
To the mineral nation that has built and maintained my bones and all foundations of life experience, I thank you.
to the plants nation that sustains my physical body and gives me healing herbs for sickness. I thank you.
To the animal nation that feeds me from your own flesh and offers your loyal companionship in this world, I thank you.
Nita?
To the human nation that shares my path as a soul upon the sacred wheel of earthly life, I thank you.
To the spirit nation that guides me invisibly through the ups and downs of life and for carrying the torch of light through the ages, I thank you.
To the four winds of change and growth, I thank you.
You are my relations, my relatives, without whom I would not live.
Carry
We
on.
are in the circle of life together, coexisting, codependent, co-creating our destiny.
Prudence.
One not more important than the other. One not more important than the other. One nation evolving from the other. And yet, each dependent upon the one above, the one below.
All of us a part of great mystery. Thank you for this life.
Amen. Thank you.
The clap, the clap.
Mystica. That with one figure, we are now the tide should be thunderous. So the energy should be increasing according to the thing. So begin. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay. Now you've got quite a long time to work on your presentations for this afternoon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Terry is giving me the
Some reflections, or some straight thoughts that came to me, which are very important values for me.
Okay.
When it comes to action for earth claim, now we Catholics would merely look at Laudato Si platforms and projects and such things. But those of us who come from multicultural, multi-religious situations, we need to reword, rename, and also interpret some of these things so that people from other cultures find it comfortable join with us.
Many of the Laudato Si platforms are multicultural and multi-faith. So,
And another thing is, we also must, or very important that we also have an attitude of joining others in other platforms.
yes, yeah.
That's also very, very important.
We can't just be ourselves. We've got to. That author that I spoke about, Sister, we see the future of religion is multi-faith, multi-spiritual, not just silos of churches. You know?
And then why, because this care for the environment is one platform where people of other religions and other faiths and other cultures can easily come together. There will not be such polarization. Yet I found polarization even on this. At a meeting in Nairobi, which was UNEP, UN Environment Program,
And faith groups. Yeah. There was one. There's a UN group called multi-faith.
Yes.
Faith groups. Yeah.
So I'm part of that.
Okay.
And I do get emails from them. All that. So there in one of the meeting, they are saying, yeah, Catholics have come out with the Laudato Si, beautiful, and a lot of things are happening. And then Muslims are invited. Then Muslims are invited to join hands with some of Laudato Si. They said they don't want to go under the banner of Laudato Si, and they said they would come out with their program.
Difficult.
So all the more it's very important that for the sake of the issue concerned, we must be willing to keep aside our banners.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.